Man, has it hit you yet? Because it ain't hit me.
No.
Has it hit you? Nah, man.
Hello and welcome to Elephant Power Productions. I'm American Elephant, call me Kevin, and this is Kev Talks, a series where I talk about what I want to talk about. So, toward the end of last year, DC announced and started their Absolute DC Universe, which is a simple yet ingenious concept. Set in a universe created by Darkseid himself, every story is about a classic or beloved DC superhero being reimagined with a core character trait or element of their backstory removed, replaced, or subverted. An idea that every run in this universe so far has shown off wonderfully. Instead of being raised by billionaires, Absolute Batman is a working class brawler with new construction equipment themed tools. Instead of being raised on Earth, Absolute Superman grew up on Krypton and watched its destruction as a kid, which makes him fight even harder to protect our world as an adult. Instead of being raised in Themyscira by Amazons, Absolute Wonder Woman was raised in Hell by longtime enemy Circe, and now has a Buster Sword.
Holy shit!
Absolute Flash is about a Wally West with no Barry Allen to guide him. Absolute Green Lantern is a cosmic horror story primarily focused on the newer character of Joe Mullane. And Absolute Martian Manhunter, the newest of these runs as I record this video, reimagines the character in a psychedelic crime thriller where John Jones and the Martian are separate entities even though they are connected to each other. Yet despite these massive changes, the characters stay true to other aspects of who they are. This is Absolute DC. A reinventive showcase of how these heroes can be kept fundamentally the same despite significant removals of lore or history that have defined them and their adaptations. And since these stories have come out great thus far, I see no reason to stop now. So when you combine that with the inventiveness of this concept, it's no shock that people have been inspired enough to make pitch videos discussing how they would reinvent other comic and even animated characters through this absolute lens. And since I love this idea too, and DC, I want to pitch my idea for an absolute Blue Beetle. Because my favorite comic book character of all time currently is the third Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes. And while I'm sure I haven't read every comic Jaime has ever showed up in, I have gone out of my way to read all the Blue Beetle stories where he is the main focus, and a ton of other comics featuring this El Pasoan teenager with a bug in his back. So if there are any qualifiers about how well you should know a comic character before changing their fundamentals, I genuinely think I fit that criteria for Jaime. Save for the fact that I am, a gringo.
Most brands of literal cracker are browner than me.
That said, this is my... Okay, so first we need a great subversive hook like the other Absolute stories. Again, to draw in comparison, what if Bruce wasn't born rich? What if Kal-El remembered Krypton? What if Diana was raised in Hell? What if Wally had no Barry? What if John and the Martian were separate? What if the Lantern Corps brought fear with it? These are great examples of one-question hooks to grab readers who know these characters. So, what could be done here with Jaime that replaces or takes away something from his history and subverts other elements from his stories? What could be done that keeps him fundamentally the same and has an underlying current of overcoming despair, since that's what Darkseid built the Absolute Universe with? Well, after much deliberation, I think I got an idea that the more I thought about it, the more it felt like this was the right story for me to work with, given my particular interests. My hook is, what if Jaime chose Kajida? Let me explain. We open in El Paso, Texas at night. Under the stars is a one-story house, and in its backyard sits a small Mexican-American boy, age 11. Jaime Reyes. Oh, sorry, that's a different kid with a J name. This one, Jaime Reyes. His eyes look at a book page filled with illustrations of animals, and he talks to himself about each one, listing the pros and cons to figure out which animal would make a good friend. Then, his mother Bianca calls him inside. We then cut to Jaime reading his book in a car being driven by his dad, Alberto, before we jump to the family having a picnic in a patch of desert or dry plains not too far outside El Paso. But this picnic has a hint of emptiness and melancholy. It feels like something's missing. It's too quiet. So, Jaime strikes up a funny conversation, trying to bring some joy to their meal. and although it's not 100% effective, it at least helps his dad relax after a long day at the auto shop. Then, Jaime gets an idea. With a little more confidence from the relaxed atmosphere, but a tinge of worry, he still stands up and says, "Mom, Dad, I want a..." But before he can finish, an explosion nearby. Something has crash landed. Everyone is shaken. Bianca grabs Jaime and rushes into the car as the blue light shining from the explosion dissipates, and Alberto joins them with keys in hand. Bad news though, the car won't start. So out of fear, Alberto gets ready to call 911 just in case. But then, from the crater in the ground, a blue creature with long mandibles and 6 legs slowly, limply crawls out. Its base body is smooth and rectangular with circular, marble-shaped yellow eyes and multiple colored pairs of squares on its wide, long back. The parents look at it in confusion and fear, and Jaime does for a moment too, before spotting its eyes and the bruises and cuts. The creature is injured and tired. Now Jaime wants to get closer. He wants to go outside and approach this scarab. But it turns out, it's not alone. Another alien crawls out of the crater, one with a red mask, a shield, and a weapon, part hammer, part axe. The alien raises it and bangs it on the shield like a drumstick on a gong. The sonic vibrations project toward the creature's back with an energy ring effect. The scarab writhes in pain, and Jaime rushes out of the car door while his parents are distracted. However, that doesn't last long and they start freaking out. Before the alien can slam the axe blade on the scarab, Jaime covers it with his body, hugging it while closing his eyes. As his parents shout for him to come back, worried about getting closer, the surprised alien presses a device on its mask and speaks.
Greeting.
His alien voice distorts for a moment before turning to English, or maybe Spanish. He says, "Child of Earth, release the infiltrator and step aside for your safety." Jaime looks up and shouts, "No! Not until you stop hurting it!" The alien tries to reason with Jaime, saying, "Child, the beast in your arms is an advanced abomination. It will kill worlds if it is not killed first." Jaime looks at the bug's face as the alien speaks, still feeling like this is wrong. He then retorts, "But it's just an animal." The alien says, "No, it is a living weapon. One that I, Conjaro, will and must break. Now step aside!" Jaime gets grabbed, kicking and screaming. His grip on the scarab is broken, and he's thrown to the side, hitting a nearby rock. He hisses from the pain and starts tearing up as his parents finally rush over to grab him, horrified out of their minds, yet of no interest to Conjaro anymore. As he tries to bring the axe down on the scarab again, its eyes snap into an angered look. The scarab summons all of its energy and fights back, causing Conjaro's weapon to slip from his grip. Broad energy wings pop out of 2 squares on each side of their back, and the scarab flies toward Jaime. Conjaro screams, "No!" grabs the weapon and lunges, ready to overhead strike. But right before the axe hits, the scarab shrinks and hugs Jaime's back. Bang! Conjaro's axe strikes a cocoon of blue energy that pushes back Jaime's parents as it pops up. From inside, Jaime is confused for a moment, then feels like something's crawling on him. He looks down and sees black goo with the texture of wet sand rising on his arm and body. Instead of freaking out though, he's mesmerized, and this continues as patches of blue armor begin materializing, while the scarab's legs stay locked around his torso. His hands get coated with this substance, creating comically large gloves with glowing circles on each fingertip. His feet are similarly coated and wrapped in slightly large shoes. His chest piece, now fully materialized, has 2 black holes in it, but those are quickly filled by the yellow eyes of the scarab popping out. Finally, the substance goes up Jaime's head, and now he's a little scared. But instead of covering his face like a Spider-Man mask, it surrounds his skull like a circular helmet, before the cocoon glows a bright sky blue and hardens. Then it bursts.
Hey, yo!
Shattering like a dropped jewel, it sends Conjaro flying backward. From the sea on mist left behind, out steps young Jaime. Still the size of a kid, but now transformed into the Blue Beetle. While distracted by his new look and alien field of vision, Kanjaro slowly gets up in fear with his weapon in hand and reaches for his gong shield. Before he can bang it, Alberto warns Jaime, who, through the Scarab's assistance, somersaults in surprise over the sonic trail of the gong attack. This begins a Kamen Rider-style fight similar to the first Carapax fight in the movie, with flips and kicks and weapon summoning that ends with Jaime landing a slash to Kanjaro's gong shield and chest, breaking the former. But when the Scarab summons a cannon with both arms, ready to fire a finishing move, Jaime yells, "Wait, stop! I know he's dangerous, but you don't have to kill him!" The bug responds with angry chitters that Jaime doesn't understand, yet. He pleads to the bug, "No, please, I don't want to! I'm not a... But then he thinks for a moment, and then responds, "He called you a killer. Is he right?" There's a long silence. Nothing but the sound of charging energy for several seconds, before the cannon powers down and disappears. Kanjaro, wounded and confused, pulls a cubic device from the back of his belt. With a single press of it, something orange and yellow shaped like an upside-down tornado appears out of nowhere above his head, quickly sucks him up, and vanishes in a matter of seconds. With the area now quiet, the suit around Jaime slowly disappears into the Scarab, like sand dispersing in the wind with a wispy glow similar to the northern lights. Jaime catches his breath, taking in what happened, until the Scarab lets go of his back. It falls on the ground, landing on all its legs. Its yellow eyes pop back out, its now healed body regrows, and it looks up at the boy. Despite everything that just happened, Jaime smiles and cautiously reaches out his hand. He inches in and kneels slowly, hoping the Scarab will be okay with him petting it. The bug, pushing on its legs, accepts the gesture, allowing Jaime to feel its skin. It has a smooth, hard density, but it's less stiff than when it was a part of the armor, almost like its skin is adaptable and malleable. After that, we see Jaime lifting the Scarab with a big smile on his face, hugging it tight, then looking back to his shocked parents and happily asking, "Can I keep it?" But then we cut to a ship on the other side of the universe. Here, Kanjaro is being tended to by green, slender beings with ball heads and medical equipment. Another of these green aliens, one in regal clothing, appears on a television screen to ask him questions. The being asks Kanjaro what happened, with the warrior saying he knows where the Reach infiltrator is. Only now there's a problem. It's bonded with a host on Earth. Alright, let me stop and explain myself a bit. When I said I wanted a story that asks, what if Jaime chose Kajida? I mean a story where Kajida is like a pet. Think Lilo and Stitch, or How to Train Your Dragon. Except the alien/animal turns their best friend into a tokusatsu hero. Instead of Kajida being found and bonding to Jaime without his consent in a pretty grotesque way like in other stories, this time, Jaime wants to be with Kajida when he meets her. And yes, I'm going to be referring to Kajida as her for the rest of this video, mainly because she's voiced by Becky G in the movie.
Hashtag feminism, hashtag confederacy.
Now, why this idea? Simply put, I think it's really creative and fun. We haven't seen Jaime and Kajida's dynamic as a boy and his dog dynamic before, and it's also why I made Jaime a younger kid here. Not only because a kid wanting a pet is a classic trope, but because visually, it helps him stand out from all the other absolute heroes. Among these titans of burning hope, by comparison, he's a little bug. And that's a good thing. Also, this would be a story where Kajida makes him happier instead of always driving him nuts, and brings out his best. But because Kajida is not forcibly attached to Jaime's skeleton, that makes it easier to separate her physically from him, and this limits how much they can help each other. So this way there's also a power and character shakeup. Now, some of you might think this idea doesn't take away or subvert enough here, as Jaime still has what is arguably most important to him, his family and his Scarab. Some of you might also argue that I haven't gone dark enough with this concept compared to the dark shit in other Absolute comics. How does toning down the body horror of Jaime's story and aging him down to a younger kid with superpowers fit in with such a radically different, darker universe? It's like putting Justin from Power Rangers Turbo into Power Rangers RPM. Well, I promise it's for good reasons. One, you don't need to be super grim, edgy, and bloody to be deep or dark. 2, I'd argue that a kid having to deal with these powers can not only be nerve-wracking since they're naturally lacking experience and could more easily get killed, but since I'm writing Jaime as a kind kid who finds creepy creatures and dangerous animals cool or cute, it makes him a beacon of hope and respect in a rather cruel world, like how some heroes in DC are seen as more pure or incorruptible than someone like Red Hood, Huntress, Spectre, etc. But 3, and arguably most importantly, because Jaime's stories have already tried going edgy in the past, and they sucked. For those unaware, I'm referring to The New 52, a late 2000s reboot of the DC Universe, where one of the heroes unlucky enough to get a comic run here was Jaime. Look, I know this reboot period has good stories, I'm sure they're out there and I haven't read them, but this run was one hell of a bad first impression for me of the New 52.
That shit is a 2-pack of ass!
There are a lot of problems with it, but one of the big issues was its violent elements. Yes, this Blue Beetle has always dealt with some messed up ideas and body horror concepts, but unlike the 2006 run, where dark moments were spaced out, off screen for dramatic impact, or more psychologically messed up, the New 52 run's violence felt like it was there to compensate for a lack of story. Because New 52 Blue Beetle had a big problem that seemed to have been happening at an editorial level, where the run had a lot of setup, some of it good, but then never paid it off, abandoned it for the next thing every other issue, and or executed it badly. Thus, the violence felt forced to me, like the run was trying to make up for its lack of a good plot with gore. Plus, in one instance, it was blatant character assassination.
Fuck you! I fucking hate you!
And besides, the point of absolute DC anyway is that even in this universe built on despair, these heroes bring truly inspiring, satisfying, glorious amounts of hope with their presence. So yeah, I want to avoid gratuitous violence if and when we can. Just because this is a darker universe doesn't mean people have to be dying every 5 seconds. Especially since I do have some character-focused despair and dark undertones at play that can more than make up for it. More on that in a minute. As for how the run would continue, I don't have a full issue-by-issue plan, but after we push past the initial begrudging acceptance of Jaime's parents fearing the Scarab, Jaime would use his powers to protect El Paso from other aliens sent to destroy Kajida. I'd want each comic to have a Monster of the Week feel, like Tokusatsu shows. That way, not only do you at least get more complete issues with ending fights that satisfy readers enough before the wait for the next monthly issue begins, but you can also reinvent more Blue Beetle bad guys to look like Tokusatsu monsters. They may be rubber suits, but a lot of villain designs on these shows are great, and I'd love to see that creativity applied to redesigns of villains like Ghostfire, Carapax, Fade Away, the Madmen, Dr. Polaris, Stopwatch, a horribly wasted New 52 villain, or maybe even Ladama, who also desperately needs a new take on the character that actually gets story payoff beyond the 2006 run. Or you can do other cosmic DC villains like I did earlier with Conchar Row, a character who, to my knowledge, has only fought Jaime in Batman Brave and the Bold, yet I wanted to include since that show was my introduction to Jaime, with a clear weapon to be utilized against the Scarab. Also, one more idea I thought of, you can adapt other Scarab hosts like Ziamara, aka Dynasties, or Roma, aka Natita, as secondary antagonists who become heroes. Especially if you go with Javier Basaldo the Blood Scarab, as he's a very tormented character that can make for some great drama. In fact, you know what? I don't know all the arcs for this idea, but that's the second one in this comic run, or third. The Blood Beetle stuff from Scarab War in the style of Jewel of the World's 4-episode introduction. Boom! Absolute literature.
Here, take this lampshade, pretend to be a lamp.
Like this? Am I a lamp now?
Absolute lamp.
Brilliant.
But alright, now let's get serious and discuss the big issues for our leads. What do Jaime and Kajida have to overcome? Ignoring the obvious stuff of Jaime having a giant scarab for a pet and the comedic antics that come with that, what's the personal drama? Well, the way I see it, with my inspirations in mind, let's start with Jaime and Lilo.
Evasive maneuvers!
Let's start with Jaime and Lilo and Stitch. For those that somehow don't know, this movie is about the alien Stitch entering the lives of Lilo and Nani, two Hawaiian sisters who lost their parents and are going through a rough patch as Nani is at risk of losing custody of Lilo. Their family and aspects of their sisterhood were broken by that death, but through bonding with and helping Stitch, they grow to better understand each other and put their Ohana back together. And that's what I'd want here with Jaime and his family, because Here's one of 2 big shoe drops I've been saving for backstory. We'd learn at some point that Jaime used to hang out with Paco and Brenda, who, if you don't know the comics, are his best friends. With them in this universe, he felt comfortable about his interests. While other kids thought he was weird for liking creepy crawlies, they saw him as cool, and so they did everything together. Played games, watched the stars, went to places with few people around so they could talk about whatever. They loved their company, and Jaime loved being with them. That is, until they both moved away. After that, Jaime wasn't the same. He felt lonely. He wanted to make friends, but he almost couldn't because he missed his old ones too much. Then, one day, his mother told him the big news. He was going to be a brother and have a sister. After hearing this, Jaime was excited and ready. He'd have someone to share stuff with again, someone to talk to beyond his parents, someone to be his friend. He wanted to be a brother. But months later, heartbreak strikes. I'm torn between 2 options, but in this story, Bianca either had a miscarriage or a stillbirth. Either way, his sister Milagro doesn't come into the world alive. A day that breaks the family's hearts and pushes Jaime deeper into his lonely feelings. At least, until he gets this idea that there's only one other way for him to find a new connection now. Having a pet. Oh, speaking of his mom, if you really need an explanation for Jaime to like animals here more than he does, or I guess would, just make her a vet instead of a doctor like Camila Noseda in Owl House. It's that simple. Anywho, this is why Jaime cares for Kajida. Not only because this version cares more about animals, but because he wants to get back the connection he lost with friends and the connection he could have had with Milagro. And by the way, make no mistake, I do not hate Milagro. I loved her in that movie, and she can be a funny character, so I am not killing her off for shock value or out of hatred or anything like that. Frankly, I wouldn't kill any member of the Reyes family if Blue Beetle 2023 hadn't shown you could do it tragically but tastefully with Alberto. Again, unnecessary violence, bad.
Get the fuck out of my sight before I demolish you.
But still, I'm doing this because, well, this is absolute DC. Something has to be taken away. Although it's not one thing like Jaime without the scarab or Jaime without his entire family, in this case we still have a Blue Beetle, a hero who always finds ways to protect or make strong new bonds with others and understands the value of family and connections, losing avenues to find that connection. A young Jaime mourning what could have been and what was. By the way, I didn't do the other ideas I just mentioned because we've already had a Blue Beetle without the Scarab's powers and Ted Cord, so I wanted to be more original. Plus, I think Jaime that one time, if I'm remembering Rebirth correctly. And as for the second idea, it's just because it felt too similar to, other orphan superheroes. And like Lilo, through interacting with this blue alien creature, Jaime not only helps Kajida find peace after being hunted, but they also help the family mend their wounds and recover from their losses. This in turn would inspire Alberto and Bianca to become more active in Jaime's interests as parents despite their busy jobs, and learn to listen to him about his passions. Plus, Kajida could maybe try to help Jaime make new friends, but since she's still a dangerous alien, that causes complications. I'd especially wonder how to execute that, since in my head, Kajida can't speak English in this universe, even though Jaime can understand her. Something based on both the original Kajida, starting with an alien language, and a plot point in the series Osama Sentai King Oger, where its Red Ranger Gira has a special communicative connection with the Beetle mecha Kuagan. Speaking of Kajida though, what's her deal? And for that matter, who are those aliens that sent Konjaro from earlier? Well, it's almost time to drop the other shoe, but before that, I'll say that the villains of this run would be the Horizon.
Who the fuck is this nigga, bro?
Oh, you don't know them? It's okay, they're new. Any Jaime fans watching this might have expected me to say The Reach, and for good reason. They're the endgame villains of Jaime Reyes, a group of insidious aliens that pretends to be peaceful traders seeking to help other worlds, only for their true intentions of destroying the planet with their scarab infiltrators and enslaving its life forms over thousands of years to be revealed. But while I love The Reach and think that they're fantastic subversive alien antagonists, even for comic book characters, I want to focus on a newer group, the Horizon. Spoilers for the Blue Beetle Graduation Day storyline and the arcs afterward, skip here if you care. Throughout it, Jaime is not only tortured by memories of the Negotiator, the leader of the Reach, but is also worried that the Horizon, a group of aliens coming to Earth and that have made more people bond the new scarabs, is a threat. However, with help from Kajida in unscrambling a message they send, Jaime learns the Horizon are good guys and they need help. Their message was in fact an SOS to help their crashing ship land. Then in the arcs afterward, the Horizon set up a colony in Palmera City, where despite their differences from humanity, Jaime tries to help them integrate, and even ends up getting crushed on by one key member, Uli, which I still have mixed feelings on since they broke him and Tracy 13 up to do that at all. That said, even though the Horizon are newer and not the bad guys, I have what I think is an interesting idea for an absolute backstory. So here it is. Long ago, there was a race of aliens divided in two. The Horizon, peaceful explorers who wanted to see all the galaxy, and the Reach, traitors who wanted to help other worlds veering toward destruction by taking away their free will and taking over at a micromanaging level. Of course, their differing ideologies led to conflict, with the Reach eventually creating scarab infiltrators designed to destroy any threat in their path to a forced peace. But there was a problem. Despite being artificially created, the scarabs were like animals. They were living creatures that didn't follow commands. So when one infiltrator was experimented on and abused in a Reach base, it went rogue. Or rather, it panicked and defended itself. But unfortunately, this panicked animal had a deadly arsenal of infinite possibilities. And it destroyed the planet. Just one scarab killed an entire world. The shock of this failure led to a panicked scramble, trying to figure out what went wrong that made the Reach vulnerable. In the end, the Horizon destroyed them, took out one of their most powerful bases, and basically wiped them all out. But now, there was another problem. Either because the Reach had already sent them in advance, or because their main world was destroyed and they were flung across the galaxy, the scarabs have been traveling to other planets, where they now either lay dormant or are still searching for a world to take. Therefore, knowing what kinds of destruction these beings can cause, and being bigoted toward any surviving member of the Reach people, even children, the Horizon hired bounty hunters and warriors to find and kill every scarab they could. So this is the other big shoe drop. The scarab infiltrators aren't just war machines, they're basically an artificially intelligent species, and unfortunately, they're mostly extinct. Going back to my inspirations, if Jaime is like Lilo, Kajida is, well, she's still Stitch, but she's also toothless. This is where I'd go into other darker concepts, and why I feel this particular story is what I should do with an absolute Blue Beetle, because it taps into zoology. Not only a field I wanted to pursue as a career when I was a kid, but a specific part of animal conservation that is sadly still relevant today. Warning, the following duration of the video on screen discusses some very uncomfortable topics related to animal conservation and human treatment of animals. Viewer discretion is advised. Throughout history, humans have hunted certain animals in great numbers out of fear. Wolves, gorillas, and sharks especially, just to name a few, are animals that were demonized or nearly hunted into extinction because people feared what they could do to us. As an example of an animal that got this kind of demonization and sadly didn't make it, there's the thylacine, aka the Tasmanian tiger, a carnivorous marsupial that settlers feared would slaughter their sheep, so in turn, they hunted them into extinction. Even though apparently the Tasmanian tiger's jaws weren't even strong enough to kill sheep in the first place, so yay, an entire species that already went extinct in Australia due to the arrival of dingoes outcompeting them with food, killed because of stupid people. I hate humanity sometimes.
And let's be real, even if the people who brought in sightings in the Tasmanian wilderness are correct, even if there is a surviving population of thylacines out there that we could reasonably put into a protected area of land,
We can't confirm nor deny that.
I know humanity. If reserves can't stop poachers, then some asshole somewhere would definitely try to hoe out the Tasmanian tiger a second time. So to paraphrase Casual Geographic, if you claim to see a thylacine, no you didn't.
Sorry.
Now yes, there are exceptions with invasive species like wild boars in the south or Burmese pythons in Florida, but in those cases it's about saving other species from extinction because the invasive ones who should not be there put them closer to it. And on top of this, they're so widespread that killing them off doesn't even really put a dent in their numbers, so it's a never-ending fight. And even then, you can still argue it is messed up to kill these animals for just being themselves, even though they're in an environment that isn't theirs. It's a sad but real dilemma with dangerous animals that live near populated areas, and I'd want that dilemma addressed head-on here. Eventually, I'd have Jaime confront the Horizon, who use the destroyed planet and the unnatural creations of the scarab species as evidence to justify their culling. To draw on a real-world example from back in 2020, the mayor of Surakarta, Indonesia, gave authorities permission to cull hundreds of fruit bats at local animal markets in the hope that doing so would prevent the spread of COVID-19, as bats in these markets were believed to be the source of the virus. It's why you probably heard the term bat soup a few times that year. Mind you, pangolins and raccoon dogs may have also started it, but in defense of that, not only are pangolins already insanely trafficked mammals as is, but fruit bats have been known to carry other insanely deadly diseases, including Ebola and the Australian bat Lyra virus, which is one of the most horrifying names for a virus I've ever heard in my life. In this instance, nobody really wins here because, yes, it was about preventing the spread of a disease killing people, but that disease had already claimed lives and was spreading like wildfire, and it's still messed up to kill these bats for something they had no control over. And you know, people were the ones that captured these bats to kill and eat them in these markets anyway, so who's the real monster here? But yeah, point is, it's a complicated, messed up dilemma that happens in the real world. So in this case, given what they've lost in their war, it's easy to see where the Horizon are coming from. But Jaime could still counter their statements about how scarabs could destroy his world by asking if it's truly fair to destroy theirs in return. In short, the dilemma would be this Stoic and Hiccup exchange from How to Train Your Dragon.
They've killed hundreds of us!
And we've killed thousands of them!
Overall, this would be the other half of my absolute Blue Beetle's heart, so to speak. Instead of a typical story where Jaime fights to live with or rejects Kajida for most of the plot and sees her at first as a bad thing, this younger Jaime looks at Kajida as a living being, a creature he can coexist with even if she's dangerous, and no matter what, he will fight for her. Yes, Kajida is a deadly animal if provoked, but that's why Jaime wants to approach her in kind, with respect and empathy. If I could go on a slight side tangent as I get closer to the end of this video, there's a particular story that has always stuck with me since I first learned about it, and it actually feels relevant to this discussion. 2003, Las Vegas. During a show by the famed illusionist duo Siegfried and Roy, a duo known for working with big cats and other dangerous animals in their performances, the latter was heavily injured by the white tiger Manticore. Due to an error in their routine, the tiger bit into Roy's arm and knocked him to the floor shortly after. He then grabbed him by the neck and dragged him off stage. While not an animal attack in a traditional sense, it was still a case where an animal that people thought they could control hurt somebody. And while I earnestly believe this duo cared about the well-being of their animals, let's also be honest. If you surround yourself with dangerous big cats or large animals like elephants, which they did, even if you do everything right, things can still go wrong. So there is probably the question of if a situation like this was preventable or just always inevitable. And I'm inclined to believe it was inevitable given the fact that of the 60 plus big cats that they owned, they had mansion space where the cats were allowed to walk around freely without being declawed. Yeah, not exactly what I'd do if I bought a zoo. So when first learning about this, I thought Manticore was going to die. Not because I wanted him to, but because I've seen this story play out before. Stories of animals in captivity being themselves and getting killed for it because man is stupid and doesn't understand the dangers that these animals pose. Having basically grown up with these kinds of stories ever since I was interested in the animal kingdom, I was fully expecting the story of Manticore to end like Harambe's. However, here's a few fun facts to consider. 1. Roy did survive this encounter. Yes, he was partially paralyzed, but he did survive. Until he died of COVID, but that's neither here nor there. And he not only showed no ill will toward Manticore during or after the incident, but he even claims that Manticore doing this saved his life from a stroke. Now, I'm not going to go deep into this because that is a lot to cover in a video that's already long and about, Blue Beetle. So, just take that as you will, whether you think it's actually true or just Roy romanticizing the event in an attempt to protect and defend Manticore. But I did want to provide that perspective, as it does reaffirm my belief that Roy, honest to God, cared about his animals. 2. Manticore, even though it apparently took a fire extinguisher to get him to let go of his grip, did calm down after the encounter and after being chased off. And 3, most importantly, when he was being given medical assistance, Roy pleaded to the people helping him, don't shoot the cat. And nobody did. And Manticore did not die. Until 2014 due to a birth illness. Anyway, despite that, this story is proof that even if an animal, a captive predator, can be dangerous, it doesn't mean they have to die. Honestly, if I could do it tastefully, I could see myself writing a scene referencing this story, where Kajida accidentally injures Jaime trying to help him, and the parents consider surrendering her to the Horizon or the authorities or some villain after her, but Jaime won't let them because even if they're doing it out of his safety, he knows Kajida is more than a weapon. Even if the parents try to argue that they will not lose another kid, Jaime only believes Kajida deserves to live because she's a living being. And in a weird way, she's his sister. So, yeah, that's my pitch. An absolute Blue Beetle where a younger Jaime chooses to bond with Kajida first. TLDR, Jaime is a cinnamon roll in this messed up world who loves every animal even when it can kill him. He is the Venomous meme. I would tell the story as one that deals with grief, broken connections, and the ethics of leaving dangerous animals alive and among us. All while a boy and his scarab protect their town as a tokusatsu superhero from aliens among the stars or possibly high-tech threats on Earth. Hell, if you want to, you could have Ted Cord, the second Blue Beetle, be an antagonist working with his sister Victoria Cord, where they're both evil and after the Scarab for technological capabilities. That feels a little slapped on. It's not in my script, but I had no other idea how to incorporate Ted or Dan into this absolute universe and subvert them, so I wanted to get that idea out while I'm recording, but yeah, I think that could work. Hopefully you liked this idea as much as I did. I know it's a bit out there, and making Jaime like animals much more is a very self-insert thing to do on my end. I'm basically making him Diego from Go Diego Go in a Beatbuster suit. But from everything I've gathered, that's kind of the point of an absolute DC pitch. To add your voice and vision in place of what's being taken away, so that despite these changes, it's still the same hero you love. And if I were writing this comic series, I would strive to do that above all else. Even if it's not with the usual Scarab body horror shenanigans, even if his interests go a different, wild direction, I would write this story to ensure, above all these changes or moments of despair, that this boy and his Scarab are still absolutely Jaime Reyes and Kajida, the Blue Beetle. Speaking of, 2 things. 1, I hope you like the artwork I made for this video. I love putting these drawings together, and it allowed me to get really creative with the references and design. I love this comic cover I threw together. I also love that when I was looking for inspirations, I learned that elephant beetles live in Mexico and South America. So that, that's a stars-aligned moment of inspiration. Come on. And 2, if you want to get into Jaime stories yourself after watching this video, I recommend picking up volumes 1 and 2 of the 2006 run, the Graduation Day storyline from 2023, and then the following arcs, Scarab War and True Blue. All of which you can find in comic stores or online. Also, if you want more standalone Jaime stories, I highly recommend This Land Is Our Land, a Blue Beetle story. It's a new graphic novel that came out last October by Julio Anta with lovely artwork by Jacoby Salido, and without getting too much into the specifics of the story, honestly, if they just called this Absolute Blue Beetle, I think it'd fit right in. Disclaimer, it is a bit blunt in the message it's trying to send, but it does it in a way that strengthens what I love about this character, his outlook on this world, and his approach to heroism. Like the Absolute Universe, it's a different world, but it's still Jaime. Absolutely. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. I'm American Elephant, call me Kevin. Thanks for stopping by Elephant Power Productions. Follow me on all these platforms, especially if you want to see my artwork in this video up close. Check out my website, check out my animations, subscribe if you want more content like this. Go pick up some Absolute DC comics. They're genuinely really good or great from what I've read so far. I really recommend them if you're looking for something new with a character you like. And I'll hopefully see you all on the next episode of Kev Talks. Take care, animo! And Amandlan Lovu to all of you.
So cute. What's your name? What's your name?
Right there.
Oh, hi. Vino Moose. Oh, hi, Vino Moose.
You're my friends now. We're having some taco.
Only at Taco Bell.